our afternoon sessions. Okay, now let me start our afternoon session. So which is about the PKCF and MKCF. So as we watch it, the presentation on AKCF in the morning, so you already have some clues on what PKCF and MKCF means. So indeed, PKCF and MKCF are kind of sister fund of AKCF. While AKCF jurisdiction covers the ASEAN member countries, the MKCF and BKCF are regional fund. So this fund has its own regional limitations. And so in these sessions, so it'll be very great for us to have bigger knowledge, understanding of these funds, how they operated, and what kind of projects have been endorsed and will be. So now let us start the BKCF at first. So let me invite Unji. So she is one of our staff in my team. So since my team Korea Liaison Unit is managing the BKCF. So please give you a warm welcome to her. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I hope you all had a great lunch or is having a great lunch. As Haksak introduced, my name is Inji Ro from Korea Liaison at the GGI. First and foremost, thank you for staying even after lunch. I hope everyone's not too full to stay awake for the session. So before I move on to the session, I would like to ask a quick question to stay everyone awake. How many of you have heard of BKCF in this room? Okay, so not many, so I'll try to make this session informative as possible. My presentation today will focus on the introduction of BIMP IAGA ROK Cooperation Fund, also the summary of the funded projects, and showcase one of the successful BKCF projects in the Philippines. Next slide. Next slide, please. I see. Thank you. I'll move on to the next slide. BKCF, in short for the BIMP IAGA ROK Cooperation Fund, was established in 2021 by the Republic of Korea to support cooperation projects between the BIMP IAGA countries, Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines, also between South Korea. The goal of this fund is to promote inclusive and balanced growth in Southeast Asia and strengthen the partnership between these countries and the ROK. I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of the BIMP countries, but I'm not sure how many of you have heard of BIMP IAGA region. So for those of you who have never heard of BIMP IAGA, you can take a look at the map that is included in the slide. BIMP IAGA Region Coop initiative was formed with the purpose of stimulating economic development in remote and less developed areas of the four countries. So as you can see in the map, BIMP IAGA spans across key areas in Southeast Asia, including Mindanao and Palawan in the Philippines, Sabah and Sarawak in Malaysia, Kalimantan and Sulawesi and other islands in Indonesia. So you might think that BKCF only targets the areas in BIMP IAGA regions, but that's not true. BKCF covers all the regions in BIMP IAGA, including the expanding to BKCF BIMP countries. So it means that if you have any project ideas that targets BIMP IAGA region or the four countries, you are always welcome to apply for the funds. Moving on to the next slide, as you can see in the presentation, BKCF mainly targets four main sectors, which are environment, tourism, connectivity, and agriculture and fisheries. The four sectors, they are from the sectors of the BIMP-IAGA Vision 2025, and the four sectors were selected by the BIMP-IAGA National Secretariats and the ROK to prioritize in the BKCF projects. As Haksak briefly mentioned in the introductory part, GGGI is currently working as the BKCF fund depository, which means that we receive the proposals from the proponents, also conduct initial reviews, and also manage the projects once they are implemented after the endorsement from the BIMP-IAGA National Secretariats and also the ROK. So you might be wondering what the process and the eligibility for the BKCF projects are. First of all, as briefly mentioned, GGGI Fund Depository, we received the proposals from the proponents at the between early January to March. We received the proposals for approximately 40 business days. And upon the receipt of the proposals, we conduct an initial review and then conduct several rounds of expert reviews within GGGI. After the reviews are done, we submit the shortlisted projects, which are also recommended to the BIMP-IAGA National Secretariat and the ROK for their review and their approval. Once they receive the shortlisted proposals from us, they conduct a review, and we wait until the BIMP-IAGA National Secretariats and ROK endorse and approve the projects from the senior officials meeting, which is usually held in late June or July. Once the projects are approved, it moves on to the project implementation stage. But you should note that before we move on to the project implementation stage, GGGI conducts the proposal review, proposal revision, and also the due diligence review so that we can ensure the proposals are revised and the projects are implemented in a high quality projects. Once the project implementation commences, we conduct project monitoring and evaluation. We also take some site visits if possible, and also disperse the funds to the proponents. Regarding the eligibility of proponents, most of the proponents or institutions are eligible to apply except individuals. You should note that individuals are not eligible to apply for the fund, but except that government agencies, public or private sector entities are allowed to apply for the fund. You can find the grant award range in the below slide. For the single year project, we provide a minimum of $100,000 until the maximum of $500,000. For 2 years project, we provide minimum of $200,000 until the maximum of $500,000. For regional projects or multi-country projects, we provide a maximum of $250,000 per country. So this means that theoretically, you can be granted with $1 million if you target all 4 countries. So now I would like to show you the brief summary of the submitted proposals from the first call, which was in 2021 until the 4th call in 2024. You can see in the graph that from the first call to the 3rd call, we had about approximately 60 to 70 proposals. But you should note that in the 4th call, we received more than 3 times of the proposals that we received in the 3rd call. During the first call, we selected a total of 2 projects out of 69 proposals. We had no choice but to select a minimum of the proposals because we were only granted with one. BKCF started with $1 million. That's why only 2 projects could be endorsed. But in the 4th call, we can now grant a total of $4 million to the proponents. Looking at the sectors, I briefly mentioned that BKCF has 4 main sectors, which are environment, tourism, connectivity, and agriculture and fisheries. However, you can see in the first and the second call that there were only 3 sectors. And starting from the 3rd call in 2023, 1 more sector was included, agriculture and fisheries, to the existing 3 sectors. Last but not least, moving forward, I would like to share the brief timeline for the fifth BKCF call. As usual, the fifth BKCF call for proposals will open in early January and will be open until mid or late March. The timeline is very tentative because the BKCF management team would need to get the consultation from the BIMPIAGA National Secretariat and the ROK to decide the finalized timeline for the call opening. And upon the receipt of the proposals, GGGI will conduct internal review and expert reviews and then make a recommendation to the BIMPIAGA National Secretariat and the ROK. After the processes are done, we will continue with the consultation with the secretariats to endorse on the finalized projects. And after that, we will continue with the due diligence review, proposal revision, so that the projects can move on to the project implementation stage. The finalized date will be uploaded on the GGGI BKCF website upon this decision from the BIMPIAGA National Secretariat. So you can have a look at the GGGI BKCF website at the end of the year for the next call. Thank you.
Thank you, NG. Thank you, NG. So even though the BKCF is the youngest fund out of three sister and brother funds, but still we are making the success story. And so now I'd like to share our one of our successful stories. And we have Aki from GGGI Philippine teams. So Aki, floor is yours.
Thank you, Haksok and Unji. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aki Estrada from the GGGI Philippines Country Office, and I am pleased to present one of the BKCF projects that we're currently implementing in the Philippines, which is the off-grid solar home systems deployment in disaster-vulnerable low-income communities in Surigao Province. Next slide. Okay. So just to give an overview, this project was one of the 3 selected in the Philippines out of 11 projects that were approved during the second round of BKCF call in 2022. The country office helped the proponent from drafting the proposal until submission and also guided the proponent during the due diligence process, in which we assisted in providing all the documentations needed to accomplish the process leading to the signing of the grant agreement in 2023. And now the Philippines office serves as the implementing partner and fund manager for this project. As mentioned, this is being implemented in Surigao del Norte in Mindanao, where BKCF eligible region or jurisdiction mostly covers. So there are 2 outcomes. Outcome 1, increase access to electricity of off-grid communities in climate vulnerable areas, which reduces carbon emissions and empower the underprivileged off-grid communities. And then outcome 2 is improvement of local community capacity to mitigate climate change impact via training or ad hoc job creation for deployment and maintenance. So the project period runs for 2 years, and it has a project budget of around USD $300,000. So the goal is to make clean energy more accessible and affordable for underprivileged communities by deploying 1,000 units within the duration of the project, providing clean energy source to 5,000 household beneficiaries, and reducing 143 tons of carbon emissions. Next slide. So about the project proponent, Light of Hope PH is a grassroots social enterprise startup focused on improving the lives of the underprivileged off-the-grid communities in the Philippines by helping them transition to clean renewable energy technologies. So if you can see the guy holding a light bulb just below the Light of Hope logo, his name is Jovi Hill Montajes. He's the founder and CEO of Light of Hope PH. He is a clean energy advocate with a degree in electronics and communications engineering. So he started Light of Hope in 2017 with the solderless solar night lamps in a bottle project made by utilizing solar renewable energy and recyclable plastic bottles to phase out the use of kerosene lamps, which really pose significant health and fire hazards to families and communities in these islands. So we are very happy to have worked with him during the early days of growing his grassroots startup, Light of Hope PH, as one of the candidates for the GGGI's Greenpreneurs Program 2021. This project is currently the biggest grant-funded project he's completing so far, and we are very fortunate to witness his transition from being a Greenpreneurs candidate to now an implementing partner for a BKCF project, really making a difference in the lives of thousands of Filipinos by ensuring energy security in the most climate vulnerable communities. Next slide. So the technology is a cloud grid solar kit units, which is composed of 2 LED bulbs with switch and 3 meters cable, a solar grid cloud grid unit, 4 ports of USB, and a 50-watt solar panel, which would really power mostly household appliances or kitchen appliances to help with the household chores, basically. And then from the first version of the kit, he was able to do some modifications of the technology to introduce 3 more versions of the solar cloud grid kits, because during the implementation phase, he was able to identify the unique needs of the beneficiaries. So then when we initially focused on providing the solar kits to household, he was did modifications of the kit to cater to Fisher Falls also. And now he's doing the 3rd version to include the use of electric fan for during hot summers to really aid with the comfort of the communities in these island regions. So he also developed an app where beneficiaries could track the impact. So that would include the carbon emissions reduced and also the savings in the electricity by using the clean energy source. Next slide. Yeah, so just a quick key achievement. So as of October 15, 2024, we were able to deploy around 498 units, benefiting around 2,140 household beneficiaries. And then for capacity building, he was able to do some mentoring and communications campaign on how to properly use the solar cloud grid units with 432 people capacitated. Beyond, the core activity of deploying the cloud grid units, he was able to engage with external partners for collaboration and knowledge sharing. As you can see, he's been invited to events and conferences, also participated in knowledge sharing events, with, for example, British Embassy, Minda events, also participate in missions with KLU when recently visited the region. Next slide. So yeah, I think this project has a high potential for replication. The ambition is to serve more than 5,000 households in Cebu, Bohol, and Mindanao Island communities for maybe a scale-up plan. And GGI Philippines is very keen on supporting him on developing a business plan to really scale up the project and make more impact in those communities that he will be targeting as in the next phases, and also to reduce more than 650,000 of course kilogram of carbon emissions per year. And also we are very happy to work with him because he's very innovative. So innovations really drive a business to scale. He's planning to do iterations of the technology, including sustainable emergency communication systems for DRRM activities, sustainable off-grid refrigeration systems, also doing vertical aeroponic farming, and maybe add another version for to power e-bangka or wooden boat that is being prevalently used in these island communities. Yep. So next slide, please. I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aki. So as Aki told in his presentations, So I and my colleague visited this island where this project is underway recently, just 2 weeks ago. And so we were quite impressed with the outcome of this project. And so before this project, the Danawan Island had no electricity, and now it has. It was kind of life changer. So they can charge their mobile phones finally, and they can watch television. So this is kind of mobile portable equipment to carry on really lightly. So they just place this gadget to their wooden small fishing boat nighttime. So to use it, so it changed their life. So I was kind of quite impressed with this outcome. So having said that, now I'd like to move on to our last fund, MKCF. And so here we have Madhurya Kumar Dutta, MKCF director from Mekong Institute. He is logged online from Bangkok. Yeah. So Dutta, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Hoksuk, for this session today. And a very good afternoon to all the participants, and thanks to GGGI for inviting Mekong Institute to join the Global Green Growth Week 2024. I'm from the Mekong Institute, which is an intergovernmental organization established by the countries of the Greater Mekong Sub-region that includes Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, PDR, Vietnam, and 2 provinces of People's Republic of China, Yunnan and Guangxi province. So our work is basically related to sub-regional cooperation, and we work in 3 main thematic areas. One is on the trade and investment facilitation, agriculture commercialization, and sustainable energy and environment. So our work relates mostly on the development projects and also bringing on policy issues and formulating and advocating policies for sub-regional cooperation and integration in the Greater Mekong region. So today, I will introduce you the Mekong Republic of Korea Cooperation Fund, which is being managed at the Mekong Institute. So in my presentation, I will provide you an introduction about this fund, its modalities, and what are the different requirements for application or assessing this fund. And I will also share with you some thoughts on some of the projects that support the environment sector. And also we have also created a kind of a M&E system. I'll just give you an outline of what we are doing on that. Next, please. This shows the timeline that from 2011 until 2015. So this was the initial phase when the Republic of Korea collaborated with the 5 Mekong countries, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand, to formalize the establishment of the Mekong Republic of Korea Fund. So with the launch of the Mekong ROK Partnership in 2011, the Mekong ROK Cooperation Fund, in short MKCF, was established in 2013. This is mainly to encourage and support cooperation in the 6 priority areas. So initially it was 6 priority areas, but later another sector was being added. So that was outlined in the Han River Declaration of 2011. At the 3rd Mekong ROK Foreign Ministers meeting, it was agreed that the Mekong countries and the ROK would establish this MKCF, which will be funded through an annual contribution from the Republic of Korea. And subsequently, in the 5th Mekong ROK Cooperation meeting, it was agreed to task Mekong Institute to act as a fund coordinator for the MKCF program. So this is basically the genesis of the fund. Next, please. So what is this fund is all about? So this fund provides grants for projects that are of regional nature. So I was listening to BKCF, they have mostly focusing on national projects, but this approach is slightly different because over the time, we Mekong countries and Republic of Korea realized that this is a regional context. So there are issues which need to be addressed at the regional level. and that is should not be in conflict with the bilateral projects of ROK with the individual countries of the Mekong region. So this focus has shifted to grant projects that are of regional in nature. These projects should align with the priorities of the countries. So each country, they have their own national priorities, and this need to address those issues, but that should facilitate the regional integration process. Such project could be led or implemented by a single country, but the project benefits or the project activities, need to involve or collaborate with the other Mekong countries or even Republic of Korea. So in nutshell, this kind of projects, regionality is the core, and that needs should be addressed to the member countries of the Mekong, and this should address to the development objectives in accordance with the regional development objectives. Next, please. So what are the priority areas that this MKCF is funding? So this Mekong Korea Cooperation Fund is basically guided by the Mekong ROK Plan of Action. And this plan of action has a link with the KASI, Korea ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, and at the larger context with the Indo-Pacific Strategy of Republic of Korea. So we have these 4 subsets, where 3 subsets that where we are operating, and Mekong Plan of Action is formulated every 5 years, and it identifies the key goals, objectives, and the priority sectors. For in this current Plan of Action, there are 7 priority sectors. It refers to culture and tourism, human resource development, agriculture and rural development, infrastructure, information, communication and technology, environment, and non-traditional security challenges. Next, please. So who can access this fund or the eligibility requirements? So all the government agencies under the 7 priority sectors that I mentioned in the previous slide, that represents the national ministries, their organizations or their institutions. Also, they are autonomous or independent organization under those ministries from Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand. And similar institutes, organizations under the 7th sector from the Republic of Korea. So the fund is available for the 6 countries. Non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, and training institutes from Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Republic of Korea are also eligible. International organizations, including UN agencies and other international non-governmental organizations, which are having their operations in the Mekong countries or in Republic of Korea, are also eligible. One of the important requirements is that the proponent of the project need to have at least 5 years of experience in implementing projects. How much could be the budget or the duration? So this fund for a single project could be a minimum of $300,000 US to a maximum of $1,000 US. And the project should not be less than 2 years and should not be more than 3 years. So proposals less than 2 years are not eligible for this funding, and proposals more than 3 years are not available. So we are looking for a proposal which is in the range of 2 to 3 years. One of the important aspects of this fund is that we promote triangular or even 4-way or quadripartite collaboration with other development partners. This is mainly to build synergies and also to expand the scope, because many of the issues or the projects cannot be addressed with this limited funding. So we are encouraging to source other partnership with other development partners, which are operating in the region, like the Mekong River Commission, Republic of Japan, United States of America, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Canada, etc. This fund also provides grants for joint activities with regional or international entity, which are formalized normally through an agreement. One of the important part is that this fund is not eligible for like construction or creating certain assets or even purchase of car or anything like that. Next, please. So this slide gives you an example. So this is not the the specific activities or project ideas, but this will give you an idea of what are the areas where the fund or the projects can be prepared. For in terms of culture tourism, it could be in areas of preservation, restoration work, culture exchange, culture tourism, and also on the knowledge sharing and exchange on creative works. Human resource development is too broad, but we are trying to see that we focus on skill development in digitalization, Tibet education, MSME and entrepreneurship in trade, investment, and environment, grading the Tibet system on the new skill or upskilling or even reskilling. Agriculture, rural development, we are looking into the value chain upgradation or value chain development, productivity, financing, digitalization, and also food security and food safety. Infrastructure, it doesn't mean that we fund for road or power construction, but these are more on the critical infrastructure relates to agriculture development or in immigration kind of. ICT, we are trying to look into projects which relate to disaster management, climate change adaptation, crop estimation or production, digitalization in MSME, e-commerce or paperless trade, or creating some kind of alliances in terms of ICT application or broadband connectivity. In terms of environment, their scope of project could be in water resources management, rainwater harvesting, disaster management, natural resource management, climate change mitigation, transport logistics, ESG in production sectors, green infrastructure, and also on traditional knowledge in natural resources. And the last one is on the non-traditional security challenges, which is also emerging a very important the scope for the projects in our region. This relate mostly on the clearance of explosive remnants of war, insecurity in traditional transnational crime, terrorism, cybersecurity, and also on the safe migration or trafficking, anti-trafficking. Next, please. So now, what is the stages and what are the different stages in the proposal formulation? There are 3 stages. The first phase is the conceptual stage, and the second stage is the project formulation stage, and the third is the implementation. The first stage, as I said, this is basically submission of expression of interest, and the expression of interest is made almost in a more detailed manner. So it will have 2 parts in the EOI stage. So we have the technical part that relates to the project technicalities, mostly giving a background or the introduction, providing some basis of the project or the rationale of the project, identifying the objectives, and also providing some descriptions of those activities. What are the anticipated results and the intervention logic or the logical framework? Then the team members. So based on the technical part, you need to also prepare the financial part to explain why the proposed activities are feasible, both technically and financially, and based on that, and cost estimation will be prepared. Next, please. Once the expression of interest is selected, or the project EOI is shortlisted, the proponent is advised to prepare the full proposal. So in the full proposal, this is more detailed. So in terms of full proposal, we have 4 key components. One is the project design. Second is the indicative budget. Then we have this indicative work plan. Then the partnership arrangement and the CV and the TOR of the core team. So in the content of the full proposal, the proponent need to have a detailed analysis of the problem, then provide the background and the analysis and justification. Based on that, arrive to identify what are the objectives, what are the success criteria, what kind of outputs will be delivered, and at the same time, prepare the indicative work plan and also the management and implementation arrangement. At the same time, the budget, the financial part need to be also provided, where the cost breakdown need to be worked out, as well as description of each element of cost based on the guidelines or the MKCF guidelines. Next, please. This is the timeline. Now we are in the 8th call of proposal. So we announced in February March this year. And this year we received nearly 261 applications. And during March and then in May, the proponents are required to submit their expression of interest. We set a due date. And once we receive these applications, the EOIs, we make the review of the EOIs sometime in July. Then in July, we submit the shortlisted expression of interest to the Republic of Korea, MOFA, and MOFA will review and select and inform Mekong Institute on the shortlisted EOIs. And these shortlisted EOIs, proponents are informed sometime in August to prepare the full proposal. And we receive the full proposal. We give nearly 45 days to prepare the full proposal, because during this time, we also do the due diligence, and also the proponent need to identify their partner organization in the Mekong region countries or Republic of Korea and submit to the Mekong Institute. Then we do the review of these full proposals, and we submit to the Republic of Korea sometime in September, October, and by November, we make the announcement, which is basically done by the leaders or the SOM leaders, senior official members of the Mekong countries and Republic of Korea. They endorse. And then finally, in November, we make the announcement. Once the project is announced, we give 2 months or 60 days for the project preparation, because the proponent need to open an independent bank account in the name of the project in the United States US dollar account. Also need to put up the team, recruit, onboarding of the full-time team. We require to have full-time staff under our projects. So we provide at least 3 to 4 project personnel up to a cost of nearly 30% of the project cost. So if the project is $1 million US, around $300,000 US will be available for the personnel cost under the direct cost level. So the Mekong countries and Republic of Korea, once they have their EOIs ready, they need to submit this to the Mekong focal point in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, and Republic of Korea. And these are the list of the current, the email IDs. And we do the evaluation in both the EOI stage and also full proposal based on these indicators. So we have the score, and this score are weighted. We do the weighted score to make the assessment in terms of their relevance and experience, then in terms of the technical part, how the project being introduced, how relevance of this, how the project is addressing the regional issues, how the project activities are being described, and how it is aligned with the project objectives, what kind of results being identified, and also the logical framework, how it is being provided. Then the financial part is also important. We will try to see the financial feasibility of the project, the capacity of the organization or the proponent to handle the project, and their experience doing similar work is also important. Then the project team is one of the most important part, because we try to see the experience of the core team. So as I said, the full core team will comprise at least 3 to 4 people on a full-time basis for the entire project, and also the consultants or the technical experts, subject experts on the intermittent basis. We try to see their CV as well for the evaluation process. Next slide, please. So this gives you what we are doing for the last almost 9 years, where we are now. So far we have been able to approve or fund nearly 48 projects. So out of the 48 projects, 21 projects have been completed and 27 projects are ongoing. There was a gap of 2 years during the COVID. So during that time, many of the projects were delayed. So that is the reason some projects could not complete on time. So there was a backlog, but now these projects are being implemented. In terms of priority areas, we see that environment and human resource development sector constitute the highest with around 15 and 12 projects respectively. And the total projects on the infrastructure and non-traditional sector challenges and culture tourism are comparatively low, representing around 2 each. So these are some areas where we are also trying to see that for equal representation. Next, please. This slide shows the annual contribution. We started in 2014 with a budget of fund from Republic of Korea for 1.3 million. So we could only give around 200 or even 150,000 US dollar project. And then for 3 years until 2017, we received up to 1 million US dollar per year. And there was a gap year in between. And then in 2018, we received to 1.1 million, then 2 million in 2019. Then we started moving up, you can see, up to 6.3 million in 2023. So this funding from Republic of Korea is increasing. At the same time, we are also getting a lot of interest from our proponents, prospective applicants. As I could mention you that in 2014, when we first launched, we had only around 12 applications. But in this year, in the 8th call for proposal, we received nearly 261 proposals. So you can see there's a huge, transformation in terms of the applications. So this is showing that at the same time, Republic of Korea is also equally increasing the fund size. So next slide, the graph shows the projects. So this shows that the total number of projects per country. You will see that we have around 221.6 million. The budget, this is the committed fund, because many projects are at different stages of implementation. Next slide, please. Since this, next slide, please. Thank you. So since our team is on the Global Green Growth Week, so let me focus here on the environment sector projects. So in the sector, we have this main objective. So the MKCF basically is aiming to promote regional sustainability by addressing climate change and environmental concern. So here in the environment sector, we are focusing on cross-sector cooperation to combat air, water, and land pollution and reduce effects of flood and droughts and saltwater intrusion and promote environment-friendly technologies. And this framework, the Mekong ROK framework, is trying to strengthen the Mekong region's resilience by promoting low greenhouse gas emissions and transportation, and also development of e-mobility ecosystems. So we are also looking into the transportation sector as well. So these are the 8 main areas of focus or the priorities that relate to water resource management, disaster management, sustainable management of natural resources, climate change mitigation and adaptation, sustainable transport and logistics, ESG, then also green infrastructure for climate resilience, and also traditional knowledge in natural resource management. Next, please. Based on these objectives and priority areas, we have this list of projects that we are implementing in the region, around 17 projects. And you can see here These are the 12 ongoing projects that we are implementing. On the right-hand side, the small icon represents the map of the country. Then you can see that is the lead country, but these are all regional projects. So we have a lead country, say assessment of heavy metal contamination is led, project is led by Myanmar, but they are collaborating with other Mekong countries. Likewise, we are having ongoing project on the guidelines and certification for green building. This has been almost completed now. This took almost 4 or 5 years because we are able to establish the green certification through the sub-decree by the parliament in Cambodia. So this is one of the landmarks that we field tested and able to make a policy change on the green buildings in Cambodia. Also, we are working on the capacity building for water resource management, livelihood for forest governance in northern Laos, portal for ecosystem, rice straw-based circular economy, integrated river basin management, mapping of the plastic liquor leaking in the waterways in the Mekong countries, and also creating a kind of a knowledge water hub for water and environment. Also developing commercial prototype for life cycle of solar panels, and also doing a research-based development study on microplastic and its contaminants in the river basins. So far, we have completed 5 projects under the environment team. One is on the innovative rainwater for drinking, and also another on the disaster hazard zone mapping, also on the circular economic resource and energy efficiency on cassava, and also on the water data utilization, and also another one on the innovative rainwater for drinking system in the rural areas, in the schools. Next, please. These are some more details. This project that we already completed, this is a project on circular economy, resource and energy efficiency. This was led by the National Center for Genetic Engineering, Biotech, Thammasat University. They collaborated with all the 4 Mekong countries. So the focus was basically on cassava value chain. This project able to build partnership with PTT, one of the leading gas company in Thailand, to roll out this as an alternative fuel and to introduce in their energy mix or the gasoline mix. So this is one of a very interesting project that we are able to showcase. And this project basically has a back history in terms of started sometime in early 80s with some funding from Germany, then subsequently UNEP, then again with UNDP. So there was a stages of innovation and development of the work. Then MKCF stepped in 2022 to work on this particular aspect. On the cassava starch processing and creating this biogas, utilizing the biogas for the waste management. Another project that we have showcased and completed in Laos is on the high quality soil and water and nutrient management. So in this project, we are able to establish some model farms at the farm level with the farmers. And they have been able to improve their farming, their crop production. As you can see, that has increased to nearly 32%. And this was mainly addressed at 3 drought-prone areas in Lao PDR. And the results have been already being shared with other Mekong countries to replicate the results and interventions. Next, please. This is on the wind energy. I was just listening to the presentation from Philippines. So this is also a similar work that we did with Myanmar with the Yangon Technology University. So the students were being in the civil engineering department, mechanical engineering department, were being used to develop a kind of a prototype on the wind energy. And the motor was basically from Republic of Korea. The product is kind of a mixed product, but the students were able to build the prototype using the local available wood to make the pen of the system. So Now we are thinking the wind turbine blade. So blade are being used with the local material, local wood. And now we are trying to launch it in the southern coastal area, which are non-grid. So we are targeting nearly 100 villages, which are off the grid for these are fishing villages. And we are trying to partner with a Korean company to run it on a commercial basis. Another project that has been showcased globally is being led by the Seoul National University. This was being piloted in Cambodia and Laos to introduce safe drinking water in the schools in the remote areas, where they do not have the normal water system. So this has established 5 RFD system. These are the rainwater for drinking system. And they have also utilized the kind of operation and maintenance guidelines to the schools, and also some kind of toolkits and training to the teachers. And these are established some kind of design for around 20 to 20 square meter of rainwater system. And this has been piloted in few schools as a rain school initiative. This model has been showcased at the UN World Day last year, and it has been widely covered. And now there is some discussion to have it in the agenda for the next round of the UN Water Action Agenda. So this is how our results are. We are trying to showcase at a global level. Next
sorry,
slide,
sorry, Dutta.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
why don't you finalize your
Finalize.
presentations?
Okay.
Yes, so in a minute. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So next slide, I will skip this again, another example. Then I move on to the final, almost the final one. This also I can skip. Yeah, next please. Yeah. So let me give you the work that we are doing. We are basically aiming to look at the outcomes, what kind of outcomes we are able to generate, because the Republic of Korea, Mekong are more interested to see the outcome level, what kind of results we are creating with these projects. So we have developed a kind of a regional monitoring and evaluation framework. This framework is basically developed to monitor the progress of the projects, regional projects, and also the accountability, how it enables to assess whether the funds being used efficiently and effectively, and also to steer and manage the projects by providing timely data and insights that provide the M&E system for the decision makers, and also to use and replicate the results for upscaling. So this system that we are creating is documenting and disseminating the results and the best practices. It also allows to showcase the lesson learned, and also is enabling to engage with other development partners through triangular, even quadrilateral cooperation. And over the years, it is creating a kind of a knowledge hub. So next slide, please. So this is how the system works. We are developing it in a cloud web-based format. It is unique in the sense that we have made this attempt. So on the right side in the pyramid, you can see. So this is the ROK Mekong Cooperation. And these on the left side, you can see these are our individual projects. We have 48 projects. So 48 projects are having the monitoring and evaluation framework, and their activities are leading to outputs. Outputs are leading to outcome and the impact. Their impact is being designed to contribute to the sector level. So we have 7 sectors. So 7 sectors, we are creating the indicators for the activities, output, and outcome level. Then this is bringing us to the higher level, that is the Mekong ROK Cooperation. So this is how the framework is all about. So at the base, we have the Mekong Korea Cooperation regional projects. These are the individual projects implemented by the countries. And this is contributing to the individual sectors. And all the sectors at the aggregate level is contributing to the Mekong ROK Cooperation, the 3 pillars of peace, prosperity, and partnership. And this is leading to the KASI, the Korea ASEAN Solidarity Initiative. And at the higher level, in the Republic of Korea Indo-Pacific strategy. So this is how we try to see that these small interventions are leading to contribute to the higher level goals of ROK engagement globally in each of the sector and at the aggregate level. Next, please. And I will not elaborate. So this is how we are creating this kind of the indicators. At the here you will see at the bottom are the individual projects, 48 projects or even 17 projects under environment. So these are creating the outputs at the regional level, and it is creating at the regional level and finally at the high level that we intend to achieve under the cooperation framework. Next, please. And these are some of our social sites, information sites that you can access. We have this mekongrok.org. We have all the details about our projects. And we have also created the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So all our project implementing agencies are required to register and upload their activities. So we are more getting into more digital kind of a format. So all activities, all participants, beneficiaries are there. One important message, let me also provide you that Mekong ROK cooperation projects are development projects. So where certain interventions are made, particularly on innovative piloting of innovative ideas. And based on these ideas, whatever results, interim results or final results, we try to upscale or replicate to see how this can be inbuilt or incorporated under the national plans and programs of the government ministries, and also with other regional cooperation frameworks in our region. So this is in nutshell about the Mekong ROK cooperation. Thanks for listening to me. Sorry, maybe I have extended the time. And if there's any Q&A, I'm happy to share with you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Hoxha.
Thank you. Thank you, Dutta. So indeed, we have cherished close friendship with each other. So as a youngest fund manager, so I'm in the youngest fund. So we have always sought to task guidance on our experiences on the kind of similar situations we are facing every day. So based on that, so we are learning each other, and still PKCF is in the learning process. So, but also Dutta is quite neutral. So we haven't started any implementation under the MKCF. We have just one project, which is in the second phase in the MKCF schedule. So now let me introduce our colleague Jisoo again. So for the presentation on GGJ's project on MKCF. Jisoo, you have only 6 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Director Ryu, and hello, Director Dutta. Good to see you again. So let me give a presentation about this proposal that has been shortlisted. That's about bridging the financing gap for plastic circularity. Next slide. So again, we're grateful to the Mekong Institute and MKCF for giving due consideration to our proposal. Next slide. So essentially, to give a very brief summary of the project, it's meant to bridge the financing gap. But if you look at the objective, the long-term goal is to develop a functional market for recycled plastic waste. And the reason we emphasized a functional market is because we want the companies who collect and recycle the plastic waste to be able to have a viable business model. And to have a viable business model, you need to have a revenue that exceeds your cost. So we want to introduce or explore policy options or financing structures that will help them maintain or try out such viable business models. So if you have that, then you have the banks willing to finance the companies or municipalities who want to do this themselves. And you have this natural system that does not require any external intervention. Right? And in the short term, you want to enhance the readiness of Mekong countries to mobilize financing for plastic circularity. It's a $1 million project, and it's going to be implemented over a period of 30 months. And it's a regional project, like Director Duta said, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Thailand, and Vietnam. Most of the activities are going to be implemented in Thailand, as I'll explain later, but the lessons learned will be shared throughout the Mekong region. Next slide. So similar to the methane project, the genesis or the motivation for starting this project is it begins at the very high level where countries came together and decided to pursue a certain agenda. And in this case, it's the Global Plastics Treaty. So under the facilitation of UNEP, the member states, they came together and said, let's have an instrument that's going to help countries reduce or eliminate plastic pollution. So similar to the Paris Agreement, if you signed this instrument, you have to have a plan, you have to have regulations, policies, and projects to implement the plan, improve data collection, so on and so forth. And as for the current status of this instrument, originally the countries thought 5 negotiations sessions will be enough to reach to have the final instrument, the text ready. And the 5th session is going to take place this year in Busan, in Korea. So we hope that the instrument will be finalized then. But whether it's finalized or not, whether it gets pushed to the 6th session, we are sure that the countries will need to prepare to implement some sort of action on plastics in their respective jurisdictions. So we don't think that that hurts the relevance of this proposal at all. Next slide. So the steering committee is composed of the Mekong Institute, mainly Thai government agencies, including the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration. And next slide. Having the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration was very important for us because if you, as I'll show later, one of the outputs involves mobilizing $50 million for plastics waste management infrastructure. And since most of the waste management activities are under the purview of the municipal government, you need to have a strong relationship with the municipal government, in this case, the Bangkok Metropolitan Authority administration to do something. And as you can see, this is a meeting between our Director General and the Governor of Bangkok. And we also are part of the committee set up by the Bangkok government. The committee is tasked with dealing with integrated municipal solid waste, and GGI staff are members of this committee, which also gives us a lot of political basis to implement this project. Next slide. So we have 3 outputs. The first one is developing bankable plastic waste projects. The second is policy recommendation, and third, regional capacity building and knowledge sharing. I'm going to spend roughly 2 minutes talking about the first and second outputs before concluding my presentation. So developing bankable plastic waste projects means you start not on a blank slate, but you start with the plan that's already in place by the municipal government, and they give us the priority projects they want to pursue. But maybe to start the project, they need to do some analysis to make sure it's feasible, or if it's not feasible, how can we improve the feasibility, whether it's operational, technical, or financial. So that is the type of assistance we're doing, and we feel confident that we are adding value here because number one, as you said, a member of the governance committee, and number two, we are not starting from a blank slate, but we already are working on the projects that is a very high priority for the Bangkok government. Next slide. So the impact of this project will be, we want to find or share replicable financing or de-risking structures because a lot of the municipal governments in Mekong region share similar issues. And finally, we want to enhance understanding of the relationship between policy measures and economic viability of plastic waste management infrastructure, because policy measures can significantly affect the cash flow, the overall viability, the bankability of the projects, whether the government encourages the purchase of recycled plastic, or they keep encouraging or subsidizing virgin plastic polymer manufacturers. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jisoo. You are very punctual, but you spend 1 more minute.
Sorry
But-
about that.
Yes, as you might be aware, so our session is supposed to end in a minute. So I cannot give you kind of full time for the Q&As, but I'd like to give you just 1 or 2 opportunities to you. So if you have any question or feedback, just raise your hand. If not, I'd like to wrap up. Yes, since I cannot see anyone to raise the hand, so I would like to wrap up this session. But after suddenly you have any questions or feedbacks, just to let us know and send us an email through bkcf@gggi.org, or regarding the MKCF, just also let us know, so we will deliver the message to the MKCF secretariat as well. And thank you for your kind attendance and attention to as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
제가 네 알겠습니다. 이거 빼고 빼고 네. 그럼 이거 다 갔다. 네. 그 남자한테 나온 거예요. 신문에 친구가 있냐고. 그래서 친구가 있다고.
So the Fedora when I came there, it was
Hello, Elena. Can you hear us? Could you please try your mic?
Hello, everyone. It's been a long day of interesting and intense sessions, so I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to join the last session of GGG Week. My name is Annalise Viramajaya. I'm a Sustainable Development Specialist for the Circular Economy COP here at GGGI. And I wanted to welcome you to our session, Driving Forward the Global Plastics Treaty, Strengthening Partnerships for Action. Today, we'll dive into how global partnerships can tackle one of the biggest environmental challenges of our time, plastic pollution. With ecosystems and communities increasingly impacted by plastic waste, it's clear that collaboration between governments, businesses, and civil society is more critical than ever, especially as we approach the final International Negotiating Committee meeting at the Global Plastics Treaty in Busan this November. In this session, we'll explore how international cooperation can advance sustainable resource management and support the treaty's success. Our panel will share key insights from recent INC meetings, focusing on scalable strategies and solutions. We'll also discuss how partnerships can help emerging economies overcome barriers like limited waste infrastructure and the economic pressures driving single-use plastics. Through this conversation, we'll hope to inspire new collaborations and innovative actions that will accelerate the shift toward a plastic pollution-free world. In the interest of giving our speakers as much time as possible, I'll end it here and dive right into the session. And I kindly ask that our speakers keep their presentations to 10 minutes. So for our first speaker, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Deok-Woo Jeon, the Circular Economy Community of Practice Lead and Trust Fund Coordinator at GGGI. With extensive experience in advancing sustainable development and circular economy models, DJ leads efforts to promote resource-efficient systems that reduce waste and foster sustainable growth. His work supports governments and organizations across sectors in adopting circular policies and partnerships. Please join me in welcoming DJ.
Okay, thank you for your great introduction to me. So yeah, so today I'm gonna talk about the global prosecurity and the key agendas. And once we have the global plastic treaties, many people are wondering what gonna happen to our world and what should to do to respond to plastic treaties. So I want to discuss the key critical points that we can expect from this the post global plastic treaty. So first, I want to start the speech with a small quiz. So basically, based on the global the research and the studies, actually it's known that the recycling rate for plastic is about 9%, 9 to 9.5%. And I want to give you some questions that so what percentage of the plastic waste is mismanaged and leaked to environment? So mismanaged and leaked, it means that the open burning of the plastics or just discharge the plastic to nature environment or river or just dumping in the soil illegally. How much it would be? Maybe 5%, 10%, 20%? Yeah, actually, the globally overall, the 20% of our plastics that we are used and discharge, it is mismanaged and leaked to environment. So for example, once you use the plastics and for example, the water bottle or any kind of the single use plastics, although you discharge it in trash can, their end point could be just nature without appropriate management. And when you look at the number for single-use plastics or the short-lived plastics, 45% of those plastics is just discharged to nature. It is a very shocking number. It's a very shocking number. So when you think about the future on this status, saying that what happened if we continue this practice? So actually, without any kind of actions, the plastic pollution will worsen definitely. So for example, in 2014, according to the UNEP's recent research, actually the 50% of the plastic waste could leak into the environment. And the more serious problem is we will use the plastic more and more as we have the growing economy. And that makes, and also the plastic itself is not degraded. And then it accumulates in our nature and it makes more serious a problem. So one of the key solutions to address is, of course, recycling. So right now, our current status is 9.5% in 2020. And then maybe we can aim to increase up to the 15% or the 14 or the 50% by 2040. But still, according to the data, we still have a lot of the amounts of the mismanaged plastics, and also still a lot of the plastics just landfill or the bond. So maybe some of you say that, okay, maybe we can try to increase our recycling rate further, saying over like 20%, 25%, or 30%. So I calculate what happens if we increase the recycling rate. So they say that if we increase the recycling rate 30% by 2040, still a lot of the plastics will be not recycled and the landfill or burned. Why? Because we have a lot of the plastics use increase according to our economic growth. So recycling is important, but it should not be the only solution. Also, we should think about reducing economic reliance on the plastics. But I can tell you that rather than the recycling, reducing plastics is more critical challenge, and it's almost a battle to overcome. Why? Because the plastic is so good material for our economy application growth. It's very hard to find alternative solution and the materials that can replace the plastics. Plastic is very cheap, very easy to make, it's very durable, it's very strong to the chemical, biological, or the physical degradation. And also, it's very easy to make with the several purposes. So it's very hard to find appropriate material to plastics. And it makes us very struggling to reduce the plastics. So in order to but still we should address this issue. So in order to address this issue, we need to change our paradigm and approach. So previously we have focused on the plastic waste management, but right now we should focus on the more holistic approach across the plastic value chain, from the very start, upstream side to the downstream side. So fortunately, the Global Plastic Treaty highlighted this approach. So it is an international legally binding agreement, and they aim to finalize this draft by this year. Especially, they will have the international meeting in Busan very soon, and they aim to finalize these drafts. So once they finalize it and sign this treaty early next year, they will be the following the actions by each country to meet this treaty. And they emphasize more comprehensive framework, and also they highlight entire life cycle of the plastics solution. So when you extract the key agenda from this the agreement, and actually I mapped the key agenda with the value chain of the plastics. Actually, you can see that they cover a lot of the agenda throughout the entire life cycle of the plastics. One thing to note is that many of their agenda are more focused on the upstream rather than downstream of the plastic value chain. And I have conversation with many experts and also the global leads on what will happen after we have the plastic treaty. And this is like a key practices and the measures that I expect that will be highlighted after the plastic treaty. So minimize the problematic the plastic, including the selected single-use plastics, is very important. And also eco-design to improve the design for plastic use reduction and recyclability is just very important. But I want to highlight we will have the huge demand to adopt plastic pricing strategies in many countries. You know, so when you're familiar with the carbon neutrality policies, there's a term of the carbon pricing, right? So in this area also there's a term of the plastic the pricing. So there's a plastic tax to reduce the use of the plastic. And there's the policy named the Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR, for promoting recycling. Also, there will be some more policy instruments as like incentives for recycling-friendly or alternative products to replace or to reduce the use of the plastics. And also, we expect that there will be some boosting of the recycled plastic market. And also, there will be more strict examination to survey connection between plastic economy and climate change. For example, many of you may probably heard about bioplastics. And then maybe you think that bioplastic is a very good solution. But also there's other studies showing that the bioplastic also can have the more serious climate change issue if you don't have the appropriate the feedstock to make the bioplastics. So when you suggest some alternative, there will be some also will be another serious argument saying that this suggested solution has better sustainability than plastic or not. So this one is not easy issue, just saying that this solution would be perfect. So, and also upstream the policy integrated with the downstream facility also would be highlighted, for example, source segregation. And this tool for efficiency and transparency also will be highlighted in the future. So, so based on this plastic treaty, we expect that the more various type of circular practices will be highlighted across the value chain of the plastics with this kind of the examples. But I can tell you that this one is very complex and very complex and comprehensive and also very complex. So what would be a very powerful tool to address this plastic treaty? Of course, the finance is very important, the policy very important, and also some technology also very important. But I would like to highlight that most important resource is partnership. So without the partnerships, we cannot cover this kind of very complicated issue in the efficient way and also inclusive way. So I'm happy to suggest this scheme to you, and then I expect that maybe we can promote more partnership to address this the plastic pollution together along with the plastic treaty. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ, for those insights. I'm now pleased to introduce Ms. Elena Lavat, the Senior Program Officer for the Philippines at GGGI. With a background in environmental engineering and extensive experience in waste management, circular economy, and sustainability, Ms. Lavat has been a driving force behind GGGI's programs to tackle plastic pollution. Ms. Lavat will be joining us online, so you may begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Annalise. Is the presentation being shared by me or? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I think, do I have to upload the presentation or you will have it?
I think it's just being brought up now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to speak about a program that the GGGI initiated this year, early this year in March. And it focused on the readiness assessment of countries, GGGI member states, for the implementation of the Plastic Waste Treaty. Next, please. Yes, I'm going to speak about the outputs of this program implemented by GGGI, and then some of the preliminary results that we could recently analyze and assess. Next, please. Yeah. Regarding the outputs, I'm going to speak about the how we actually assess the level of readiness of the country, so which has been our methodology, and then which other outputs are being analyzed throughout our program, also to integrate this assessment, and then which I will briefly introduce also some challenges for implementation, which can be taken as lesson learned for further implementation. Next, please. So this program is a global program on the Plastic Waste Treaty, but we decided initially to implement it in 5 different countries: Ecuador, Uganda, Laos, Philippines, and Kiribati. This is because to cover, let's say, the scope was to cover more or less all the geographical areas of GGGI. And we selected 2 countries in Asia because Asia, of course, is one of the first contributors for plastic in the oceans, for marine litter. And then Kiribati in the Pacific, together with other Pacific islands, of course, is suffering for the lack of waste recovery and recycling opportunities. So we covered quite a bit of geographical area. Next, please. So how we assess the level of readiness? The level of readiness was assessed through self-administered and self-administered and staff-administered questionnaires. So basically, we prepared the questionnaire before through online forms, and then either we supported the counterparts to complete these questionnaires, either they were able to complete them by themselves, especially for what concern development partners. So we have identified 4 typologies of stakeholders. So government officers, development partners, so international organizations, but also local organizations in some countries. Private sector, mainly, let's say, companies involved in the plastic waste management at any type of level, or also plastic producers, let's say, also, so virgin plastic, let's say, companies who utilize virgin plastic, and then also the informal sector. So we have interviewed not only junk shops, but also groups of waste pickers, more or less organized, because so the choice of this stakeholder is also connected to the requirements of the Plastic Waste Treaty, which which demand the full integration of all the stakeholders throughout the value chain, including the informal sector, right? So for the government officers, we have tried to select government officers, of course, involved not only involved in environmental related aspects and solid waste management, but also we try to target those who were actually, let's say, involved in some level to the negotiation. And so we asked them which were the modalities of participation in the negotiation, if they actually participated to the INC events, or if they participated to other side events or other types of discussions, which were the knowledge gap on the treaty. And this is a quite interesting result, okay, what they know and what they don't know, not only in terms of what is written in the treaty, but also the technical aspects, let's say, discussed within the treaty, which is the support received by the DPs, the development partners, and which are the gaps related to that. And then, interestingly, we also try to understand which was the perceived level of readiness regarding the regulatory framework, but also the readiness of the private sector. So at which level you think that the legislation is ready, and which level you think that the companies are ready to actually implement the Plastic Waste Treaty. So this was asked to the government officers. A bit shorter questionnaires maybe were provided to the other stakeholders. Of course, the questions changed, right, for the different audiences, but more or less we also wanted to explore which was the level of engagement in the negotiation at different levels, engagement in projects related to plastic waste management. Specifically for the private sector, we wanted to see also if private sector benefited from the support or collaboration of development partner. And then again, each of these category was requested to express their perceived level of readiness of the regulation and or the companies, so the private sector. Next, please. Other activities that we are still implementing. So also the data collection on the level of readiness is still ongoing. Actually, we are more or less halfway, and we hope to finalize it by mid next month. But we are also implementing many other activities in each country. So for example, in Kiribati and Laos, we are supporting the government in the preparation of statements to be submitted at the next INC5. In Ecuador, we have supported the government to prepare a communication campaign, probably for the closure of the treaty negotiations, although this is still under discussion. In the Philippines, we are trying to assess the level of readiness of the existing legislations, which is quite peculiar because it prevents the banning of single-use plastic. And then in all the countries, we are trying to identify PINs, so Project Idea Notes, to support the implementation of the plastic waste, some activities of the Plastic Waste Treaty. And then we are trying to establish working groups or platforms on solid waste management in all the countries. Next, please. So which is the results of this preliminary data that we have collected on the readiness assessment. So basically, they have the government officials, they have a limited participation to the plastic treaty negotiation. There is also quite frequent rotation. So it doesn't mean that those who join the first INCs are joining also the last one. So they are losing pieces here and there. There is lack of clarity on the nature and actually the content itself of the plastic waste treaty. We have received a request for support in clarifying especially the issue of the chemicals of concern and other aspects. Because also those who have to reach the negotiation, they don't have a technical knowledge on this aspect. And then also all of the countries supported are supporting and supported governments in plastic waste related projects, although the level of success is not always positive, recognized as positive. Next, please. Regarding the private sector, so we have understood that there is a very low level of participation and involvement in the not only in the negotiation but also in the preparation of documents or statements or things like that. And so this is a crucial point in the sense that avoiding the participation of the private sector could create gaps afterwards, maybe. But the private sector, although they are not participating directly in the negotiation, they are actually maybe indirectly aware of what should be done to improve the plastic waste chain. And so all of them, all the companies we have interviewed are doing more or less something to also advance their chain, and they are very also aware of what they would need to improve their value chain. And then all of them recognize that there is a lack of capacities from the regulatory point of view, in the sense the companies perceive that the regulations are not ready, while they feel that they are ready, but with more financial support and more policy support, they could do much more. Next, please. Regarding the development partners, all of them, in some kind of ways, participated in the plastic waste treaty, not only for the negotiation, but also in some kind of support, and the number of projects on plastic also incremented since the plastic treaty started to be discussed. Let's say that they think the development partners think that the aspect requesting the treaty should be further integrated in the policy. So the perception of the development partners that the policy is not ready, while the government may think that the policy is actually ready or almost ready, right? So it's very interesting to see the perception, and also they think also that the companies are not fully ready to implement the plastic waste treaty. Next. Finally, regarding the informal sector, none of the groups that we have interviewed, the junk shops or groups of informal waste pickers, have been involved in any ways to the plastic waste treaty. They have no clue that the plastic waste treaty is being even discussed, and they think that the government is not ready to implement. So once we tell them which is the content of the plastic waste treaty, they understand very well. They have a very clear understanding, but then they think that the government is actually not ready to do that. And also their perception is that they are going to be exploited further, because this will give privileges to the private sector, maybe. Next. So cross-cutting aspects, basically, that we have identified throughout our assessment is that in none of the cases there is no proper involvement of all the stakeholders, and something that all the countries have some mechanism or some type of let's say policy or actions already in place that more or less align with the Plastic Waste Treaty, but further, much further activities shall be done to ensure proper integration. So let's say the policy is quite lagging behind, and also the implementation, the let's say technical or industrial capacities as well. Everybody think that the government is not ready. So everybody think bad of the others and they think good of themselves, basically. So this is quite a bit of a perspective. And then, so what is actually demanded? Next, please. Yes, so what is actually, what we actually understood and what is also actually demanded, which could be also what next kind of activity, we should for sure capacitate the countries in the Plastic Waste Treaty, and this could be done not only through capacitation of the government, but also through the implementation of studies like in-depth cost-benefit analysis, for example, and then support the policy development to be aligned to the Plastic Waste Treaty. One of the idea that maybe we have also perceived is that the ratification of the Plastic Waste Treaty may be delayed because this would oblige member countries to adapt then to the treaty, and so this the legislation should adapt to the treaty, and so this may also delay the ratification of the treaty, which is actually, as we know, is something very urgent actually to do. Next, please. So this is the question. So what's next? I think GGGI, after this assessment that will finish, the readiness assessment will finish by the INC5, and we will also probably have the chance also to discuss more in depth these results during the side event. I think we could really take the opportunity to explore more in depth these results and support the policy development, which then will also enable then investments and all the other implementation opportunities. Thank you very much. I think is the last one. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your insights on the Global Plastics Treaty, Elena. Our next speaker is Dr. Jae-Woong Lee, a research officer at Korea's National Institute of Environment Research, and a key member of Korea's delegation for the Global Plastics Treaty. With over 15 years of experience in water treatment, water chemistry, and emerging contaminants, Dr. Lee currently focuses on the fate and toxicity of nanoparticles and micro and nanoplastics. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Lee.
Thank you for inviting me as a speaker in this position, and really appreciate giving the opportunity to participate. And as I explain myself, let me introduce myself. My name is Jae-Woong Lee, and from National Institute of Environmental Research as a common research officer. And maybe GGGI invited me as take part in the UN plastic, the treaty as a delegation. So I don't know how much I can explain and share about the information about the UN treaty, but in case of this, I just tell you about the microplastic. In the global plastic treaty covers lots of the topics like the plastic products and the plastic design and chemicals of concern, but in most of the case of plastic pollution, maybe the plastic waste causes lots of the problem in the environment, but a small particle like the microplastic and nanoplastic really cause like the harmful to the human and the ecology. So at this presentation, I just focus on the microplastic in the global plastic tree. So what are the microplastics? The simple answer is the small size polymer particles. The plastic have become ubiquitous in environment due to the extensive production and uses of plastic products, which has caused plastic pollution. Particularly the plastic particle, like the microplastic and nanoplastic, have caused concern regarding human and ecology hazard at different levels. The general microplastic can be divided into two types, like the primary microplastic and secondary microplastic. The primary microplastic is called by the intentionally synthesized for different applications such as cosmetic and textile and other applications. And the secondary microplastic generally is told about fragmentation of larger plastic particle due to different the biotic process and abiotic processes. But in the environment, two types of microplastic are virtually indistinguishable, very mixture in the environment. However, secondary microplastic are the mostly frequently observed and abundant in the environment. The below pictures show about really observed in the environment. The most of the microplastic show like the irregular shapes, but in the middle upper, the circular shape is a primary microplastic. And the size of microplastic was discussed at the first international research workshop in 2008, hosted by NOAA in USA, where was adopted a pragmatic definition, and they suggest the size of microplastic with an upper size limit 5 millimeter. Recently, the ECA also decided the definition of the microplastic that are all dimensions between 100 nanometer and 5 millimeter, and also containing polymer, and that should be the solid polymer. And in case of a fiber, that should be a length of 300 nanometer to diameter 15 millimeter and aspect ratio 3. But the definition of size of microplastic is still controversial because different institutions and organizations say about different size of microplastic. In case of EFSA, they say about microplastics to be ranged between 5 millimeter to 1 micrometer. In US NOAA, they say about below 5 millimeter. And in the ISO, they say about between 5 millimeter to 1 micrometer. And only one institution ISO defined about nanoplastic that should be below 1 micrometer. So where are microplastic? That is question. Everywhere we live, that is a simple answer. Many papers, many reports, and many newspapers say about the microplastic detection in all environments. One paper say about microplastics are everywhere, even in the Swiss Alps. And also other one paper show about fibrous microplastic observed in atmospheric fallout. That means the fiber microplastic floating in our air environments. And also larger papers and reports say about the contamination of the microplastic as well as the plastic pollution. So big animal like the whales can eat the plastic waste as a food, and they say the picture show about that. And in case of small fishes, they can eat the small particle such as microplastic and nanoplastic in their organs. And larger of their papers say about this detection of microplastic. So microplastic are ubiquitous in air, soil, water, even in food, and drinks. So in the base of this information, we have a question about microplastic concern. Yes, concerns are rising due to the larger papers say about that. But how about there is a little known about the harmful. But recent papers say about some information about detection in human organs. The first paper per se about the detection of microplastic in human lung tissues. They observed about 39 microplastics identified within 11 of 13 human lung tissue samples, with an average 1.2 microplastic per gram of tissue. And the microplastic shape are mostly fiber and fragments and film. And the 12 polymer microplastics observed in the human lungs types were identified with PP and PET and resin. And also upper right, the papers say about the discovery of and quantification of plastic pollution in human bloods, and the microplastic in human bloods below 0.7 micrometer in human whole blood from 22 healthy volunteers by the pyrogenesis methods. And they observed the PE, PS, PET were the most widely observed in the bloods. And the mean of some quantifiable concentration of plastic particle in blood was 1.6 microgram per cubic meter. I don't know, 1.6 micron per milliliter. That is not small amounts. And the recent paper below, they show about bioaccumulation microplastic in descendant human brains assessed by pyrogenesis methods. And this paper published in 2024, and they say about the detection of microplastic, and I think the size is close to non-plastic, observed in kidney and liver and brain. And the main regions about is the autopsy human samples in 2016 and 2024 showed 12 polymers in liver, kidney, and brain samples. And the PE was the predominant polymers. And all organs exhibited significant increase from 2016 to 2024. And the relative proportion of PE were greater in brain samples than in liver and kidney. And based on this, the microplastic as well as plastic waste pollution, now the global action is now ongoing for microplastic and nanoplastic. That issue is now negotiating, and that is show about main key, the main key of the microplastic and nanoplastic, that is for protecting human health and from the adverse effects of microplastic pollutions. And in the INC 3, before the INC 4, the initial paper only contained about microplastic. But in the INC 4, the nanoplastic are involved in the paper. And in the initially INC 3, only microplastic intentionally involved in this paper, but it contained also unintentionally micro and nanoplastic. So we have to focus on microplastic as well as nanoplastic in the future. And what is the efforts of Korea in addressing the microplastic pollutions? There is a key major issues. As you know about the most of countries have agreed reduction and removed of intentionally added microplastic and unintentional occurred microplastic in or from plastic products, and need to discuss about definition of microplastic impacts on human health and source of release as well as related researches. But in the paper, in the UN treaty, they have two options for microplastic and nanoplastic. The option one is prohibition of plastics and products containing intentionally added microplastic. And option two is the actions of management, restriction and prohibition, if necessary, on plastics and products containing intentionally added microplastic according to national situations. And it also contains about information sharing of registration DB in countries. For this option, there will be controversial between the countries, like the consumer countries. and the producing countries. In the case of consumer countries, they suggest about the ban on the global production, sale, and import and export of microplastics. And in case of producing countries, they also suggest that about the scientific operational risk of microplastic, not only just for the ban of microplastic of products and plastics. And neutral countries and also suggest about national approaches as well as scientific approaches for microplastic. Where the South Korea stands for, we are now supports about option 2, and previous I say about in the INC3, there are only microplastic and intentional microplastic are involved in the paper. But in the INC4, I suggest about this nanoplastic and also unintentionally nanoplastic and microplastic. That is occupy large of the concern in environment and humans. So maybe in the INC5, they discuss about microplastic as well as nanoplastic, also intentionally and unintentionally micro and nanoplastics. That is a big progress, I think, for the micro and nanoplastic concern in environment and human health. Sorry. This slide is the challenge and the opportunity in the global plastic treaty. As you know, about the global plastic treaty, UN plastic treaty, there are lots of the issues, but it shows about big issues of plastic products and chemicals of concern and product design. All of this is aiming for the reduce or removing of the plastic pollution in environments. In case of plastic products, they should consider about mismanagement of plastic waste as the ultimate source of plastic pollution through increased circularity of products and improvements in recycling and waste management capacity, as well as prevention and reduction of pollution upstream should be prioritized. But to decide this, there are lots of the controversial between producing countries and consumer countries, but it's now ongoing discussion. So I don't know how to decide it, but they also agree about there are the big 2 approaches to the plastic products. The first approach is global and national approaches. And also, they also consider about mandatory and voluntary approaches. I don't know which approach is more real to all countries. So it's now controversial to the countries. Maybe INC decide their approach for the plastic products. And for the chemicals of concern, the big issue is how they decide the hazardous criteria of chemical of concern. Do you think all of chemicals are harmful in plastic waste or plastic products? So they consider about criteria for identifying chemicals of concern in plastic products and chemicals of concern in plastic products for ban or elimination under the instruments, and also groups of chemicals of concern in plastic product to avoid and minimize under the instruments. In case of product design, is focusing on the recyclability and reusability of plastic products. So these also need approaches. The approach should be implemented or be based on robust knowledge. We need to account for the global nature of plastic value chains and also can provide flexibility. And they also have decide about which products should be considered for product design between whole products versus detailed products. But this is also big issues in the product design. So this is very related to the use of products in different countries, and each country have different capacity of recycling facilities and also possible sectors. And also this is very related to the global standard as the WTO. So this is very controversial issues of the plastic pollutions. So these three topics are very hot topics in the global plastics now. The conclusions, plastic waste and micro and nanoplastic pollution in everywhere have raised global concern due to its impacts on the environment and potential human health risk. Recent studies tell us that detection of micro and nanoplastic in human organs may demonstrate continuous exposure to micro and nanoplastic via inhalation and ingestion. INC2 develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution is in progress, and next INC 5th meeting will be in November in Korea. In case of the plastic products, the issue is prevention and reduction of primary plastic pollution upstream, how to approach between globally or nationally. And for the chemicals of concern, it is big issues for how to decide hazardous criteria of chemicals in plastic products, especially how they decide the risk and how to evaluation about it. And in case of product design, that is big issues for recyclability and reusability of plastic products. So how to approach it between whole products or detailed products. This is my last slide. And the upper picture shows about the National Institute of Environmental Research. And below pictures show about ad hoc international open-ended expert group meeting, the INC on plastic pollution, the last August 2024. Thank you.
Thank you for that very informative presentation, Dr. Lee. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Pedro Sao Simão, lead of the National Plastic Action Partnerships at the World Economic Forum. An economist with a background in sustainability and circular economy, Mr. Simão has spent the last decade working across the plastics value chain to promote circular solutions. His experience spans government, private sector, and nonprofits across Europe and Latin America. Currently, he leads the Global Plastic Action Partnership, which supports countries and stakeholders in building a circular economy for plastics. Mr. Simão will be joining us online from Switzerland, so I thank him for joining us so early in the morning. Whenever you're ready, you may begin your presentation, Pedro.
Very good. Thank you, Annalise, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much first to GGGI for this invitation and for DJ in particular. I'm very pleased to be in this session today after three amazing presentations. So I think this one builds on what we heard in the previous three. Again, the focus of my presentation is how we can mobilize multi-stakeholder partnerships. And I will bring the example of the Global Plastic Action Partnership as, again, since 2018, we have been working in this approach. And again, the idea of the presentation today is to really give you a sense of what are the results and the value and the power of multi-stakeholder collaboration. So in the next slide, just to introduce, I think you all knew the role of the World Economic Forum, but I think it's important to start from here. To understand why is it important for the Global Plastic Action Partnership to be hosted at the World Economic Forum. We are the organization for public-private cooperation. You all know that we bring stakeholders from multiple sides of society to discuss the most pressing topics of our world. And we have, as a mission, improve the state of the world. So we work in multiple areas. Of course, the one where GPAP is in is concerned with environment and nature. But just to give you a short introduction to the forum. And in the next slide, you'll see the role of the Global Plastic Action Partnership. That is basically the same idea of the World Economic Forum as a whole, but focus on the problem of plastic pollution. So this initiative, as I mentioned before, was founded in 2018 and hosted at the World Economic Forum. And it was founded by, again, already a public-private collaboration. So our donors come from governments, the UK and Canada, but also from the private sector. So Dow Chemicals, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Nestle are the original donors of our partnership. And they came together and decided to host this partnership at the forum, again, with the aim of accelerating efforts to tackle plastic pollution and to make it just an inclusive transition towards a circular economy for plastics. Again, the ambition is very high. The idea is that GPAP actively contributes to the elimination of plastic pollution. And the way we translate this global vision and global ambition into practice is through national plastic action partnerships. So in the next slide, you'll see where we are right now implementing these national plastic action partnerships. Right now, it's 19 geographies. We aim to get to 25 by the end of next year. And in the next, and before passing to the next slide, it's just for you all, especially GGGI people, to look at this map. And we heard Elena speaking about Ecuador, Laos, and Philippines. So we match most of these geographies. And again, we are working with the same objectives, with the same vision. So there is a lot of collaboration that we can all also do together. So in the next slide, just to explain you briefly how we implement these initiatives in practice. So the first thing that we do is that we start a conversation with the government. We want to be sure that there is endorsement from the government, and there is, of course, interest from the government in the work that GPAP brings to the country. So what we do in the first months to develop this relationship is to really understand the local landscape, the priorities of the government, but also the needs of the country and where GPAP can add additional value. Because most of the countries where we are working already have their own circular economy strategies, single-use plastic policies. So it's really to build on what is already being developed in the country and implemented in the country and really accelerate these existing efforts. The second part is, after getting an agreement with the government, we start to build a multi-stakeholder platform. We heard DJ speaking about the importance of an holistic approach and to involve the whole value chain from industry to recyclers, everything in the middle, and also all the other interested parts in this value chain. So government, NGOs, civil society organizations, and other international organizations working in this space. So we bring them all together in this platform. And what we want is to really first understand what they are doing, and then how GPAP, or the Global Plastic Action Partnership, can really empower them to double down their efforts and really accelerate this transition towards plastics circularity. So we bring them together, and one key piece of our work is to really ensure that any decision or next decisions that are taken in the country follow an evidence-based approach. So we have specific tools to enhance knowledge on the plastic value chain. One of the key knowledge tools that we have, it's called the National Analysis and Modeling Tool. So this tool provides you a baseline of the situation of the plastics value chain in the country. So how much plastic comes to the economy, how much plastic waste does this country generate, and what happens to this plastic waste in the end of life? Is it recycled? Is it landfilled? Is it going to pollute the environment? And what is interesting about also this tool is that it can project scenarios for the future. Again, we saw in DJ's presentation, this global projection. What we do is again, a similar exercise, but at the national level. So the country can understand what happens if they keep the same course as where they are right now. And obviously, the situation in the next 20 years will not be great. Usually, of course, there will be more mismanaged plastic waste. But then, bringing this platform of different stakeholders, we discuss with them what are the actions that they can take to really invert the situation. And then we build this scenario together. So what we call a systems change scenario, where we get to a much better place than where we are today. Some countries virtually eliminating plastic pollution in the next 20 years. Others maybe still some plastic pollution in the end of 2040. but again, the trend towards total elimination of this sustainability challenge. Together with this study, what we do also, because you heard me mentioning just an inclusive transition in the beginning, we really want to be sure that we take everybody in this journey and take these sustainability challenges as an opportunity to improve people's lives. We take close look to the informal sector, waste pickers. We take close look to all the communities that are impacted by plastic pollution the most. Usually communities that live next to a landfill or a dump site, communities that live in a coastal area. So to really understand the context in the countries, what we do is a gender and social inclusion assessment for every country where we are working, to really understand the landscape and already define strategies to mitigate the situation. So with a baseline, the scenarios, and the gender and social inclusion assessment, what we do is a national roadmap. So we, together with the local stakeholders, define the needed action to really achieve the scenario that we want for 2040, and at the same time use this transition to improve people's lives. So this is basically the first year of our partnerships in the countries, and the following years is really to implement the actions we define in these action roadmaps that I just mentioned. And just again, we have heard a lot about the Plastics Treaty in this session today, but just to let you know that these initiatives that we have really support countries, especially in the past 2 years, to get more evidence and to really reinforce their understanding of the situation in their own country, facilitating the negotiators to better position their country in the negotiation of the Plastics Treaty, knowing not only the situation in the country today, but also what they can achieve in the next 20 years with, of course, coordinated action from the multiple stakeholders of the plastics value chain. So in the next couple of slides, on the next slide, just to give you a glimpse of what a roadmap, a plastic action roadmap looks like. So we published 6 so far. There are 13 in the making. And in the graph, you can see the example of Ecuador that, as you can see from this graph, what is interesting here is that in red, you see the mismanaged plastics, and there is a clear drop of mismanaged plastic from around 40% to less than 10% in the next 20 years. But also interesting is to see that the level of consumption of plastic in the country in the system change scenario has stabilized. So again, just to give you an idea, there is a full report online, so you can visit also our webpage to learn more about GPAP. And in the next one, also just to give you a glimpse of the studies that we do in terms of gender and social inclusion. Again, 5 gender and social inclusion assessments published so far, and 13 in the making. And in the last slide, just want to let you know that GPAP, the Global Plastic Action Partnership, of course, has an interest in the Global Plastics Treaty that we have been talking about. Let you know that Global Plastic Action Partnership is a neutral platform at the global and then at the national level. So we don't take any specific position towards what the country should do or what the treaty should look like. What we want, again, in the spirit of the World Economic Forum, is to bring the different stakeholders together. So for the specific agenda of the treaty, we have been developing additional knowledge. So the circular industry solutions, we recently developed a report. It's online. It was launched in May about solutions at the upstream part of the value chain, but also at the downstream that are really moving the needle. And if these solutions are replicated across different geographies, they can really change the landscape and the way we consume plastic and make it, of course, more circular and avoid any plastic pollution. We are promoting during INCs, but also during the events of the World Economic Forum, what we call the cross-value chain dialogue. So from all private sector involved in the plastic value chain, we bring plastic producers, plastic converters, but also recyclers, brand owners, retailers together to really understand. Of course, they all have different agendas, and we don't want to align their agendas. We just want to generate the space for dialogue that everybody understands what's at stake, what the other thinks, and based on that information, again, they can build a more informed position in the context of the Global Plastics Treaty. And the final piece that we are working is the financing coordination group. Again, understanding that means of implementation is a key area of the Global Plastics Treaty. So the Global Plastic Action Partnership has formed this informal group that brings together some of the most relevant finance institutions of the world, mainly multilaterals. So the World Bank, for instance, OECD, UNEP I-FI, the Circulate Initiative, and of course ourselves, but also together with governments. So we have a government per region participating in this informal group to really advance these conversations, but at the same time using this group as a way to share with a wider audience, with a wider public, information about how the finance sector can contribute to an effective plastics treaty. So we have been implementing a group of webinars. The next one is coming in the end of this month, where we bring finance sector institutions to really explain what they are doing and what they need to do, and what the treaty, and what kind of treaty do they need to really reinforce their action towards supporting plastics circularity. So I think that's all for now, and I thank you again very much for this opportunity. You have my contacts there, and through this QR code you can access the Global Plastic Action Partnership webpage, and again download and read all the reports that I just mentioned. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you for your insights on partnerships and the perspective from the World Economic Forum, Pedro. Lastly, I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Sarah Castro de Holgren, Sustainable Development Officer at the United Nations Office for Sustainable Development and the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. With over 14 years of experience in the UN, she has been a key figure in providing evidence-based, data-driven policy insights to support sustainable development for member states. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Castro de Holgren.
Rainy Friday afternoon where I think a lot of us probably need more coffee. I'm the last presenter, and I think now we've had great perspectives to frame the challenges of implementation of a global plastics treaty in a national context, given the complexity of the issue. And so I will be focusing more on the post-consumer side or the downstream side. And so when we talk about data-driven and evidence-based policies, this can be applied to every part of plastics, from the production side, where we lack data on the kinds of additives or polymers and other things that are being used in plastics products, that our babies, our mothers, and all sectors across the economy use across the globe. We also lack data on the types of imports and exports that are occurring in many developing countries. And then we especially lack data on that post-consumer or the waste side, the downstream side. Because as was mentioned, there are actors involved like the informal sector and a lot of challenges to process all the waste and products that we're using as consumers on a daily basis for decades now, since this started, right, with Bakelite and in the 1950s. So we have this agenda, and this is where I come from in the UN Office for Sustainable Development and the United Nations. We have this agenda called Sustainable Development Goals. And in this agenda, we have plastics, yes, under the Global Plastics Treaty, but we have waste. Plastics is one product that we are discussing in the Global Plastics Treaty, but plastics is also used in waste overall, when it comes to organic waste, food, packaging, when it comes to e-waste, which is the fastest growing waste stream. Waste as an issue is cutting across the 2030 agenda, which is really aiming for us to achieve sustainable development or a better life for all by 2030. So it's impacting everything from our water, as we heard, our economic growth, our trade, the issues of gender that were discussed, the issues of health and well-being, life on land, life underwater, and climate, because plastics is produced from fossil fuels, right? So it's really cutting across all of this. And then especially it comes into waste-specific goals under the 2030 agenda, which are 11, 12, and 14. And there's mixed progress, and you'll have this presentation so you can look at, you know, how behind we are in terms of waste. Because when we look at waste, these specific indicators, or the way that we're collecting data as countries and with countries and in cooperation with statistical offices, the countries or member states, as we call them in the UN, are reporting on these specific indicators. But it's very challenging. So when we talk about plastics and reporting on how plastic is being processed as a waste product, there are gaps. And unfortunately, on this waste side, we see the largest gaps in terms of data and evidence. We have goal 11, which is looking at MSW, municipal solid waste, how it's collected, controlled. We look at food under SDG 12, and then we look at the issues related to hazardous waste, the Basel Convention, which is governing waste. And then we look at 12.5.1, which is national recycling rate, right? We heard from DJ, the initial presentation, we hope recycling will go up, but we know use will go up. But there's very little data on national recycling rate. And then the impact side, 14.1, is where we look at marine litter, plastic debris density. So how much is in our oceans? Also, we lack data. Goal 8 is there because 8.4 is looking at resource efficiency. So if we invest in better recycling and resource use, then we will also have an impact on resource efficiency under goal 8. But let's look here, 12.5.1, which is the national recycling rate. So when we were defining these indicators, we thought, okay, great, this is a great way to measure progress. Unfortunately, a few years later, it's 2024, and this data is the most recent data that we can report on, and it's still looking pretty gray, which means that there's a lack of data, right? So we saw this, and then from our office side, we also know that in the statistics division, which is our sister division in UNDESA in New York, there has been increased reporting on waste. So initially, there's a survey that goes out every 2 years to UN member states in the statistical offices. And you can see here, this is the most comprehensive and longest existing data set, which also includes plastics that is reported across countries. And the reporting has been increasing. So in the last one that went out, 59 countries, so nearly 60 reported. And the statistics, again, are mixed, so it's a mixed bag. And as we know, the lower income a country is, the poorer the statistics are, and the poorer the reliability of data on waste. And then why is that? Well, because we know that the lower income a country, it means that they will be towards the lower end of this graph here. And this is a general conclusion we can draw because, again, we lack data. Because of the large presence of the informal sector. So if we look at the x-axis, we could say lower formal collection of waste or plastics, for example, in an economy. Towards the right side of the x-axis, there's a higher formalization rate. So you can get higher value capture. But on the lower end, if you're more informally collecting the waste, you're getting less value. So that means that you're not able to also report on the data, let's say, because these are lower income enterprises and it's more informal. And so we want to move towards a formal, which would also mean more value captured, more economic efficiency, but then also better data, right? That means there's exclusion. So we also need to take that into consideration for a just transition in implementing this type of treaty. So in response to this issue of data gaps, we launched a process that started with an expert group meeting nearly a year ago where GGGI participated. And this we developed it into a publication that I'll share a bit of the findings about with you, and then launched this this July at the high-level political forum in New York, where we share progress on the SDGs and SDG 12 on where those indicators like recycling and things, that's where it was reviewed. So we launched the initiative to support more countries on advancing resource circularity, including for plastics and waste. And so this was the publication to look at more evidence-based. If we're going to talk about a global plastics treaty, then it's an opportunity to also look at the waste management system as a whole in the country, because we cannot act on plastics without also acting on improving waste management in the country. So this is what we talk about here. And then we talk about national to local policy action, because what we found is that this topic of waste and also plastic recycling, it's like a ball. So the national government will say, no, this is the responsibility of municipalities. And then the municipalities will say, well, we don't have the funding. This is really the responsibility. The private sector has to get more involved. And it's also informal waste collectors and waste pickers. So it's also their responsibility. So then the ball goes to these actors. And then they say, well, we can't recycle unless we have more financing and more action from national government. Then it goes back. So it's a ball that gets passed around to different parties. So we just need more concerted national to local policy action. And this is what we found. So we have many different data indicators and things that are being reported specifically for plastics. 79% has been deposited in landfills. We know that. So that's the marine litter problem. And then if you look on the bottom part, the reality of the situation is that 90% of the waste in low-income countries is discarded in unregulated dumps and then burned openly. So when we talk about incineration, it's maybe not incineration in a plant, but just open burning. That's how they will report on it, because there's also confusion on the statistics and how to report. So it's a really complex system, and plastics fits into this specifically under waste. And we try to and need to take a life cycle approach, right? So this is what we have focused on, and we hope to support more and more countries on to strengthen the overall process, because we know that there is a data gap. So we also found that there's 15 years age gap in terms of the waste data that is reported from low income countries. So data that's coming in that we're relying on is 15 years old on average. And how can we develop evidence-based policies or action when that's how old the data is? So we really need to invest in better data, which can also lead to more credible investments and financing and monitoring of progress for a global plastics treaty. The publication contains this table, which really looks at the primary data gaps in developing countries, again, focusing on low and middle income countries. And when we say that it's a municipality that has to be the one tackling waste, then we also need to look at what we call ward level data or local data. But unfortunately, it's very complex to get data from all of your municipalities on this topic. So that's why the focus has to be on national to local strategies for these types of policies. And then one innovation that we shared is satellite data. This is secondary data, of course, but it can also become nationally owned data through country partnerships with GIS providers or other types of satellite data partnerships. And this now is able to tell us how much plastics is out there floating in the ocean, sources as well of pollution. And so we have that because there is innovations like from EMIT, which is looking at color, using color basically to be able to look at where the plastic pollution is and the sources from agriculture primarily. And then we also know that there are new types of statistics and data initiatives that will be implemented for plastics. And this is also with the action that we see through a global plastics treaty. So it is spurring a lot of action in initiating better registries. In the case of Korea, we already see through the Albaro system that's used here, that's very innovative. They use everything from IoT to GPS, QR codes, real-time data to track plastics collection. But other countries on the higher income scale, of course, are implementing new systems that can also enable better data and set the benchmark for lower income countries and middle income countries to receive support in the future. So now, because I think it's been too long, we will just skip through this, but we have identified capacity gaps, which can present strategies for action in supporting countries with partners like GGGI. And then we also have identified the key barriers for government, which is full cost accounting. That's the primary run, right? Which is a complicated, controversial issue, but that is the solution in many of these cases to also finance the future on data collection and then improving the management systems. And then we also share a bit of the tools for policymakers that we can share, like Pigouvian taxes, cohesion measures for improving regulation and certification systems. And then lastly, I just want to close with saying that the existing gaps in the data that we have can lead to solutions if we also work together in assessing those gaps. So like the first presentation from Elena, where she worked with different countries to look at where are the gaps. I think this is a great strategy forward so that we can plan effectively and then support countries more effectively, including the informal sector as well and local level actors in strategies to address plastic waste. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very informative presentation, Sarah. So the session has run a bit long, and in the interest of time, I think we'll truncate the panel discussion. So DJ, if you'd like to pose just a question or two, the floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, so I have prepared a lot of dedications to our speakers and panelists, but yeah, we are running time, so maybe I can give you also the few questions to some of them. So actually, I have the one questions. Actually, it's not from my end. Actually, there's someone to give these questions to the Jaeyoung regarding the Korea government role in the plastic treaty. So they ask about South Korea is a chair country to INC5 and also has a major role in it. So and then she is wondering if you can explain the why South Korea is a neutral country and also and how they can host the INC5 although they are a neutral country. So could you please explain this part and also explain what role Korea is playing in negotiations?
It seems like I give you some confusion about the slide it gives you. The South Korea seems like a neutral countries, but I mean the neutral countries. The concept of the neutral countries is basically based on when the country of the microplastic and nanoplastic in the UN treaty, it is basically needs the national based the strategic and also the about the scientific research approach is really important to control the microplastic. So as you know, South Korea is very strong in the chemical strong countries, so very close to the producing countries. But we are now looking at how this negotiation is going on. So we do not suggest about only one ways to get a harmonized treaty. So I mean, there are two options there in my slide. In the first option is for prohibition of microplastic and products containing intentionally added microplastic in there. And option 2 is about like the intentional added microplastic, but the actions for management and restriction and prohibition of plastic and products according to national situations. So we stand for the option 2, basically national and the scientific research approaches. So this is some give you confusion about it, but we are now standing for option 2. Maybe this is close to the neutral countries. So I present about this like the neutral countries. So as a role of INC5 host, I cannot say about the exact stand for about the law in the the microplastic strategy, but basically we are staying for option 2. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Actually, I had a lot of questions about microplastic and nanoplastics, but yeah, maybe I should keep that for next sense. So I would like to ask something to Pedro, and thank you for your great presentation and also explanation about the possibility to collaborate with the GGGI and also other international organizations. So actually, Pedro, so you and your teams have discussed collaboration opportunity with our teams. And based on these discussions, how do you think GGGI could join and contribute to this plastic action initiative?
Yeah, thank you, DJ, for that question. And I have so many answers for that. Yeah, starting, I think the most immediate answer and then the more potential strategic collaboration in a long-term horizon. So immediately, as I mentioned in the presentation, there is these countries where we are exactly working the same topic, addressing the same stakeholders. I here make the invitation to GGGI to really be part of the stakeholder group of our plastic action partnerships in the different countries. Again, there is work done in Ecuador, work starting in the Philippines. So very, very happy to connect with Elena, but with all your colleagues from the different countries, we have been doing that so far because I think there is, of course, an immediate opportunity to generate more value together. Then the second immediate option is again, understanding the capacities of GGGI. We have plastic action roadmaps, but we don't have the means to implement them. We depend on partners, again, national partners, but also international organizations like yours to really support us in the implementation. Again, the coordination and the collaboration between the two of us would be important to really reinforce and to ensure, for instance, that programs that GGGI is implementing in this field can be aligned with our roadmaps and vice versa, to really reinforce and double down the efforts that we are trying to implement on the ground. Then there is also, I would say, more in the midterm, but the opportunity I mentioned, we have now 19 partnerships. We aim to achieve 25. Some of these partnerships are just starting. And as the World Economic Forum just have offices in Geneva, New York, we rely on partners to implement our partnerships on the ground. And we look for usually international organizations that are aligned in terms of vision with the Global Plastic Action Partnerships and have, of course, operations in the country. So again, GGGI is definitely a great candidate to become the host of organization for upcoming partnerships or those that are just starting, and we are looking for a good partner to support us in the implementation. And again, the final piece, a lot will need to be discussed between the two of us in the long term, but I think in the midterm, short to midterm, there is also the potential of regional collaboration. Again, you saw we have now 8 partnerships in Latin America, 7 in Asia, 4 in Africa. You also have your clusters per region. And I think, again, the issue of plastic pollution or pollution as a whole has no borders, right? Waste doesn't care if it's in Peru or Ecuador or Cambodia or Laos. So I think there is this regional coordination that, given that we have operations in so many countries, that we can really work together to really ensure that regions work in as a much coordinated way as possible to really make that one policy here, one action there, really reinforce each other instead of being conflictive to each other. So again, in the very short term, I would say these 4 pieces of immediate opportunity for collaboration and for our 2 organizations to work together to generate more value to the communities and to achieve the common goal that we have, that is tackling pollution, specifically plastic pollution.
Wow, thank you so much for your great explanation. Yes, I'm very excited to hear that. Yes, so definitely we can make them more proactive and they're also very productive, collaborative synergy very soon. And I would like to give my last questions to Sarah. So, so actually, your organization, UNOSD and GGGI has been collaborating very well in the circular economy sector and also other sectors. So for example, just a few months ago, we hosted Youth Summer Camp in the same place in here. And also we are preparing the publication on the plastic as well. And also today you emphasize the importance of the waste management data for various purposes and highlight your organization research works to address these data gaps. So what would be your next the strategy to further facilitate these efforts, including PSS and AI solution? And then if you have any plan or suggestion to collaborate with the GGGI on this scheme, yeah, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Yes. So yes, I think we will continue collaborating because I think the value added from GGGI is from the flexibility that it has in responding and working on the ground with the member states and in coordination with many different actors on the ground and in implementing the solutions that we discussed that are needed to take this forward. So just like Pedro also mentioned, I think at the regional level is where we can facilitate those commitments and actions and activities because we need the policy action to happen, but each region has different types of challenges and specific needs as well. And then the issue of plastics, it is a global problem, but it is a traded problem as well. So we need to have that focus on green growth and the challenges that countries face, and that can be best addressed together at the regional level. So when we will continue to implement these regional workshops and activities, then GGGI will be an instrumental partner with us there on the ground in delivering that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful the feedback on it. So yeah, okay, that's it today. So basically, you know, so when I think about the solution for plastic pollution issues, sometimes I feel like some very stressful and, you know, depressed. I cannot find a way to find, you know, so just like a single solutions to our partner countries to address this plastic pollution. But when I have the meetings and discussion with our partners, like, you know, the UNOSD and the World Economic Forum, and also the new partner will be from the Korean side. Yeah, they encourage me a lot. And then I find some hope. We can do some things and great impact for our partner countries. So today, I hopefully this session can give you this kind of insight to you, and I hope that we have the more productive partnership to address this very serious agenda and to work on the more green growth in the circular economy sector. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, let's see next time. Thank you.